Welcome back to the Rise with Anita Podcast, or welcome if you're new here. I'm so excited because if you are new here, I trust that you're in the right space. So, today's episode is going to be a space or a container where we don't shame our past selves for how they've survived, but we also don't ask them to lead our future. Today's episode is for the woman who is starting to notice her patterns a lot more clearly. Not with judgment, but with honesty. The ones that once kept her safe, the ones that helped her belong, endure, get through. And the quiet knowing that some of these patterns now feel heavy, limiting, outdated. They're rooted in old belief systems that no longer work or serve. But before we get any further, let's go ahead and arrive together. Something I've been doing with the podcast lately is inviting you to take a breath with me. So if you're able and willing to do so, inhale gently through your nose, hold for 2, and release for 4. Allow your shoulders to drop. Let your body know it doesn't need to defend itself right here, right now. One more breath in. Hold for 2. Release for 4. I want to say something clearly. There is nothing wrong with the patterns you've developed in the past. In fact, if we think about it, it was adaptive. You felt intelligent at the time. It likely formed at a time where you didn't have too many options. So it might have looked like staying quiet to keep your peace, over-functioning so no one would leave, being agreeable so you'd be liked, staying busy so you didn't have to feel, being the strong one so no one saw your tenderness. And on that note, I just want to take a reminder. The walls that have protected you are also the walls that are imprisoning you. And the first time I heard that sentence was at a Tony Robbins seminar, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And for someone who's been guarded and had resistance to being open to feeling, to vulnerability, I remember thinking, the walls that protect me are actually imprisoning me? What does that even mean? What does that look like? And I realized I was so afraid of being hurt that I would never let anybody in. And the ones that got close, I still didn't allow to let them in, to be open, to be vulnerable. And these patterns aren't flaws, but they are protection. And they always work until they don't. And here's the moment many women find themselves in now. Their patterns are running on autopilot. And instead of creating safety, it's actually creating exhaustion. Instead of connection, it creates distance. Instead of feeling like you're belonging, it starts to create resentment. And that's not because you failed to outgrow it, but it is because your nervous system has evolved since. And what kept you safe at one point has quietly become your ceiling. And ceilings don't fall on their own terms. They wait to be acknowledged. Letting go of patterns doesn't always feel liberating at first. In fact, if we're being honest here, it can feel terrifying and so foreign to your nervous system because your body remembers this is how we were surviving. So when you stop the people pleasing and you stop over explaining and you stop pushing through, Your system might react with fear, guilt, or doubt. And that doesn't mean that you're making the wrong choice. It means you're stepping outside of what's familiar. And growth doesn't threaten who you already are, but it does threaten what has kept you safe. Because what kept you safe doesn't always equal what keeps you growing and in alignment. And here's the thing that I keep coming back to. Your body often knows before your mind does. So you may notice a tight chest when you say yes, but you actually mean no. A bit of a heaviness when you start to override your needs. Fatigue after conversations that you've actually abandoned yourself or you didn't speak up. I know I had that recently. These aren't signs that you're weak, but they're signals that your system is asking for a new strategy. One that is actually anchored in self-trust, not self-sacrifice. So I want us to take a pause together. Place one hand on your heart, the other on your belly, if you are willing and able to, and not driving. And I just want you to take a slow breath in. And take a long exhale out. And gently ask, not from a place of needing to fix and not to change. What patterns am I actually ready to think and release? And as you're thinking them, have the awareness of how they were keeping you safe. And I want you to recognize you don't need to interrupt the patterns from today. You don't need to drop it today. You don't need to have a confrontation with anyone right now. The awareness alone is enough for now. Because once a pattern is starting to be seen with compassion, it can no longer run the show unconsciously. Because it actually gives you enough awareness that you can start to form pattern interrupts. And here's what I want to get at. Here's the deeper shift that's actually happening beneath all of this. You're learning to start to choose from safety, not from your survival. You're realizing that the woman you're becoming doesn't need to be belonging or disappearing or earning love by overgiving or earning her worth by proving. She gets to be honest. She gets to pause. She gets to take up her space. Not because it's comfortable, but because it's true for her. So before we close, I'm going to invite you to take one more breath with me. Inhale. Hold for 4. And exhale for 6. And if you recognize yourself in this episode at all, I want you to hear this. You don't need to shame the patterns that kept you alive, but you also don't need to carry it into your next chapter. You are allowed to think it, you're allowed to choose differently, and you're allowed to start over. If this episode spoke to you, share it with a woman who might be realizing the same truth quietly. And if you feel called, please leave a review. And it helps this work reach the women who are ready and needing to release control without losing their safety. So thank you for being here with me. Thank you for honoring the wisdom of your past and the calling of your future. I will meet you in the next episode. And until then, take a breath. Take care of yourself.